Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the one who doesn't mind horsing around,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria, the deck-building game. It's a really long title.
It is.
All right, Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. Working together, the players will travel to different locations in Ponyville, get new cards to improve their decks, complete tasks for resources, and overcome obstacles. If the players are able to overcome 3 obstacles and the final challenge before time runs out, friendship wins the day. So, Will, how does this change for 2 players?
There's actually no changes. In fact, what happens is the cards will call out scaling wherever there's necessary. Like, for example, you need so many horseshoes per player.
Right.
And so therefore, as you get more players, you'll need more horseshoes and less if you have fewer players. Also, there's no bot. So even though this is a cooperative game, a lot of times they'll use like an enemy AI that'll come and hunt you down. This is more just clouds going on cards, so it's a timer mechanism, not an AI bot.
Correct. Okay, so in the 2-player experience, there are a few issues, and it revolves around the number of players. So you won't have as many other people to interact with, and some of the cards will target other players. Like, everybody draws a card.
In this location.
Yeah, if you're in the same location. So there's some, what do you call that, physicality of that. And if you only have 2 players, the likelihood of both players being in the same spot, it's not as likely if you have 4 or more, well, I guess up to 4 players, yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, there are going to be cards that call out specifically named characters.
Correct.
You actually play one of the 6 main ponies in the space game. So let's say Rainbow Dash is called out. Nobody's playing Rainbow Dash. That part of the card will fizzle out. The card will still do something.
Right.
So it's always useful card.
Right, it's still useful.
But you won't have that synergy to play off of if that character's just not in the game.
Correct. But there's a few things that this game does well at the 2-player count. Well, I mean, it scales well for all player counts, because that's really it. A lot of the key necessary things that you need to do scale. So you don't have to worry about any imbalances there. And we actually think the 2-player might be the easiest count.
Yeah, one of the things that happens is when you're tackling the obstacles or the main
Final
challenge is it'll call out so many cubes, sugar cubes. Sometimes it's so many sugar cubes per player. So there's that balance. But when you're taking that challenge on, you'll flip up a card and it'll add stuff to it. And it's going to be this resource based on number of players. 2 players, that cost is still fairly low, so that 1 player could technically pay for everything. But once you get to 4 players, there's no way that 1 player can handle the massive amounts. Now, the good thing is everybody pitches in to help against those obstacles. The problem is they don't get replacements for those cards. They have to go through their entire turn with fewer cards in their hands, so you have that recovery time, and you're essentially like burning someone else's turn. So 2-player, that is very minimal. 4-player, it really hits you hard.
Yeah.
So that's why we think that the 2-player experience is going to be a lot lower and easier, and it's above the 1-player because, as we stated, there are cards that synergize with having other players to interact with. 1 player doesn't have that.
Right.
So at least the 2-player has a little bit of something to help, and the costs don't balloon like they do with more players.
Correct. Now, we should be honest, we have not played it at the 4-player count yet. I have seen a few videos where people have been playing it at the 4-player count, and it looks much more challenging. And I've also seen a solo play, so that's where we're kind of basing our theorizing on.
Yes.
And then lastly, one of the things we usually complain about in a 2-player game is the card row getting stagnant. However, one of the game's timer is the deck running out. And so the end of every player's turn, if a card was not removed in some other way, usually bought, then the farthest right card is removed, and so you always have movement of the card row, so it never gets stagnant. For the most part in a 2-player game, that's great, because the other timer of the game, which is the clouds going on, the obstacles, that will end a 2-player game way before running out the deck. That deck timer is more for a higher player count games.
Yeah.
All right, on to accessibility. And one of the biggest problems with this is there's no icon difference between the sugar cubes, because it's just all based on color. And the blue and green are hard to tell apart. Now, the cubes themselves are okay. In bright light, you can see the shade difference between a green cube and a blue cube. The problem comes in on the cards, because the cards use a smaller icon, and it's a very slight shade difference between the blue and the green. So if you only have one of them on the card, at least for me, I was always doing a double take or triple take on, okay, is this actually blue or is this actually green? Let me find another card so I can compare to make sure. Now, it's easy if they're on the same card together, because, well,
they're different.
They're different. Yeah. You can see them. But when you only have one of them, and again, after a while, I was able to tell the difference, but only in that the blue looked slightly darker than the green cube icon. But again, still not great. And especially if you're not playing in really good lighting, you're probably going to have a hard time. And honestly, I think it would have been better if they had done yellow instead of green. And that would have been kind of like the primary colors.
Yeah, they have the yellow, blue, pink, which would be like yellow, blue, red.
Yeah.
You also had an issue with some of the icons on the cards themselves that represented the resources. They have a light white kind of
shade kind of behind it.
Right. And depending on the background of the card, they were either really easy to see
yes,
or blended in.
Yeah, honestly, since there were other aspects on the card that used a banner or a text box, I feel like this would have been a really great opportunity to have a solid color banner or whatever bar down the left-hand side, basically not have the art behind the icons, because there's other places where there's icons and they don't have the art behind it. And so there are some that are perfectly fine because it's a solid color or less busyness, but then there's ones where it's super busy and maybe it only has one icon, so it takes a while for your eyes to find the icon. And unfortunately, one of the worst ones are the ones that just give a sugar cube. They're in the bottom left corner of the whole art box. And on all three of them that give a pink, blue, green, each one, it's all a busy art in that corner. So sometimes I was pulling up the card and I was like, does this thing even do anything for me? Until I've like, oh, this is the one that gives me a pink cube, because it doesn't do anything else. And at first you're like, this card doesn't give me anything. So
now there are a lot of repeats of cards. So once you play it enough times and recognize the name, you'll kind of pick up on like, oh, this is the pink card, pink cube generator.
The good news is that they all have pink, green, blue in the name for the ones that generate. So it's like I think it's Pinky something.
Sense.
Yeah, Pinky Sense and
Blue
Sky, and I don't remember the green one.
I don't either.
But so it has the word for the color in the title. So
you got a clue.
You have a clue.
Yes.
Yes.
Then you're also thinking cognitively.
Yeah. This is not, well, I would say for the most part, this is not a great introductory game. If someone has not really played a lot of games, the fact that it's melding deck building with cooperative play and it has 6 resources that you have to balance, that's a lot to take in. So I do feel the cognitive complexity on this game is a little bit higher, and the real reason I bring that up is it's My Little Pony. There's a lot of people who, unfortunately, I've already heard, and this is a new game as of recording of this, people have bought it for the wrong people. Oh, I bought this for my kid because I thought, they'd really like it, and they can't understand it because it's more complex than they can handle. This is not just your typical, mass market throw a IP on a bad game.
Yeah. And the box itself does say 14 plus for the age recommendation, and that's They're very serious about that.
I mean, unless your kid is really, that kid has grown up as a gamer, then if they're below the age of 14, they probably can get it. I mean, you're going to be the best judge of the child if you know them well enough. The other thing that I guess I bring up is with this cognitive is then people who would dismiss it because it's My Little Pony are going to miss out on a really strong game, but that's more in the review section.
Yes. So what it does right.
Well, it's all open information.
Yes. And also to help with the icons that appear on the cards, the horseshoes, the books, the move symbols, they appear in the same location. So you actually know where to look, even if you're having trouble seeing it in the first place. You know where on the card to be focused to see, well, whether or not it has it.
Yes.
So that's really helpful right there.
Right. And the text box, I mean, these are some of the most straightforward, but that's what you want in a game that you have to do a lot of reading. It's black text on a white background, and it's just perfect. So you're not going to have any issues reading what the card does, which is an unfortunate problem in a lot of other games.
Yes.
Okay. Conclusion.
So recommendations, 2 players.
Yes. Like we've discussed, I think this is probably 2 players is a sweet spot.
Yeah, honestly, this is where I would prefer. And even if you find like a 2-player and you want it to be difficult, there are still things in this game box that we don't play with because they do make the game more difficult. So even if you're that 2-player and you want the higher difficulty, 2 players I still feel is the sweet spot because you can actually add in that extra level.
Agreed.
So 2 players, definitely yes. Accessibility.
I would say most people are going to be okay with this game. The biggest issue is going to be the blue-green cube icons, but since it's cooperative, hopefully someone else at the table can help. Or if there's any cards that aren't being used, I'm trying to think of any cards that might not be being used. Anyways, you could try to find something that would be a good reference that has both the blue.
The final challenges.
Oh yes, you only use one of the final challenges. So if you don't mind slightly being spoiled on knowing which one.
Oh, you know from the beginning which final challenge.
Oh, that's right. That one's not secret.
Yes.
So yeah.
So you can use the final challenge cards, identify the 3 different colors, and have them there to the side as a reference.
Yeah, because that is one thing this game does not have is any reference cards.
So I would recommend with good light.
Yes.
And with that little bit of reference, you'll probably not have any accessibility issues.
Agreed.
All right. So Sarah, if you had a cutie mark, what would it be, and what would be your special talent?
Oh, well, the cutie mark is probably pretty easy. I would think, oh, maybe it's not so easy. I don't know. On the spot, there's so many things I'd be. Maybe a cloud, because, like dreaming. Maybe I could like do illusions, like dreams coming to life or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, that will do it for us. And why would you ever roll with just one when you can be rolling with 2? And remember, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with 2. That's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And if you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.